Hi! After I got my 3D printer, I tried myself at building my own air engine, which is why I got the printer in the first place. Designing it was fairly easy thanks to Tom Stanton's video series on his air engines. I honestly cannot recommend his videos enough. Anyway, it took me only a few tries to get the ball valve to be airtight. But I can't say the same thing for the piston and cylinder. I tried over and over printing pistons and cylinders, carefully sanding the surfaces until they're smooth and the parts fit well together. But I couldn't get the tolerances right. No matter what I tried, there was always air going between the piston and the cylinder, so it couldn't hold pressure. And after wasting around 3.5 months working on my own air engine, I just had to do something else. Otherwise, this engine would have driven me insane by having to print, sand, test and fail over and over and over again. On some days I just wanted to throw myself on the ground and cry like a little bitch, but I knew that's not gonna help, so I didn't. Instead, I boxed it all up and put it on my shelf to revisit at a later time. Then I took out my good old Solenoid engine and started to take it apart, because I want to upgrade it and also try some things. To start, I removed the piston and power switch. Next was the crank disc. Then the spool got removed. And finally the axle and flywheel. Alright, that's everything I need from this one. Now let's mount it all onto this thing. So far so good. Now we'll take this apart. I only need the flywheel from this. Take out some ball bearings for the new axle.
That was not a good idea.
Back to the engine mount. Mounting the ball bearings.
This cannot fit.
Here I'm adapting the base so the switch can fit.
Nice. Perfect.
The switch needs its knob. Now I glue the switch in place. The base needs some feet so the flywheel doesn't hit the ground.
The next day.
Mounting the crank piece. Add a ball bearing and install the axle. Now comes the flywheel. I had to fight the screws for about 20 minutes to get the flywheel mounted. After that, I was not in the best of moods.
Look how bad this is. Look how bad this is. Look how Look how crooked the screws are. And how bent that is.
So I removed the flywheel from the engine and printed a new one. Here it is. Now let's mount it. That looks pretty wobbly. Screw 1, screw 2, yup, screw 2, screw 1. And
That looks better.
mounting the crank disc. Installing the con rod. There's too much resistance.
This doesn't work.
And it can only go this way because it binds up going the other way.
Now, the only thing missing is the piston. Well, and the battery and cabling and all that. But now I gotta take this and cut it somewhere here to length, so that I can use that as the piston. And if you compare this to the previous piston, we'll hopefully get a stronger pull, you know?
Because it's bigger.
Alright, let's do that.
After that, I gave the piston a rough polish to get some of the rust off, and so the piston is a bit more shiny. Now onto the second cut. Because I cut the piston too long. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. Now we just glue it to this. There, that'll hold. And connect it to the con rod.
Cool.
It works, but there's still that resistance from earlier. I went on to print a new con rod, uninstall the old one and install the new one. I've also finished up the wiring and swapped out the screws on the flywheel for shorter ones, because they kept hitting the base. I did some test runs before I swapped the screws in the flywheel though. Here you can see why I had to swap them. For some reason it works at low RPM, but as soon as it gets up to a little bit of speed, the screws hit the base. And that obviously hinders the engine from gaining speed. And here we have it, the new Solenoid engine fully assembled and ready to run. And guess what? I built a car for the engine to sit on. With a differential, a drive wheel, and a servo for steering. I'll just put the belt in place, and we're almost ready.
I've mounted all the electronics. We got the battery for the motor. We got one battery for the ESC back here, and for the receiver, and for the servo up front, so I can steer that whole thing. And yeah, let's take it out for a test ride.
At first the transmission was too big for it to drive properly. The resistance was just too much for it to overcome. So I've swapped this 24-tooth gear out for a 16-tooth gear, and I removed 2 links from the chain. Now with a smaller transmission it should drive a lot better. Let's see how it drives now.
Yeah, it's definitely slower. And as long as it runs, it might be actually able to drive, yeah. Oh yeah, that's definitely more torque. A lot more torque. Holy, nice. And it runs. That is awesome. Full speed.
The engine sometimes doesn't fire due to the contacts getting dirty from arcing over and over again.
Instead of filming outside the garage, want to do it inside the garage.
Because the floor is a lot smoother here.
Yeah. Woo! Whoa! Next Formula One. All right, I've swapped the battery because this one is almost empty. So let's give it a go. See if it runs better now. Here we go. Yippee! Why are you dying already? Come on, keep going. There we go. Woo! Awesome. Nice. Give me the quick start here. Yeah. Aw. What's going on? Oh. It's a tiny little latch here. Or ledge. Woo! Look at it go! Look at him go! Look at him dying!
Here's one issue I would like to fix, but I can't.
Oh boy, yep. You're toast, you're at like 110 or something.
The warmer the spool gets, the weaker its magnetic field becomes.
It's a bit warm, but shouldn't be too bad, I reckon. That was it for here for now.
Now let's drive on even smoother ground. But before we do, I've added these 2 additional belt wheels, so I can quickly change the transmission, and also this belt tensioner, you know, to keep the belt tensioned. But there's a problem. No matter where I'm mounted, the belt just jumps off after just a few rotations. I glued this wire here as a temporary belt tensioner until I had the printed one. And I gotta say, that wire works much better as a belt tensioner than the printed one. So I've charged the printed tensioner and promoted the wire from temporary to permanent solution. I've also made this cap to extend the piston so it moves smoother, but I had to grind the piston down to make the cap fit. And without the cap, the piston now almost falls out and doesn't go back in. And now, let's drive. Let's do one more run on 2S. And now on 3S. That's a whole lot faster and stronger. Nice. Well, I think that is everything for... Wait, let's compare the old engine to the new one. Here is the old engine on 2S. And here it is on 3S. And here it is on 4S. Now let's see how the new engine compares to that. We'll skip 2S and go right to 3S.
Wow.
One more try.
Dude, that's rough.
And now on this engine for the first time, 4S.
Wow. That's crazy, dude. That is just insane. Okay, let's not run it on 4S.
Well, there we have it. A complete overhaul of my solenoid engine. From wood to plastic, now drivable and with a bigger piston. Now I'll put it on my shelf to keep it there for some time in the future. Well, that is everything for today. For real now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and you'll see me in the next one.